This hidden homemade fertilizer makes grass explode with growth. And I'm about to reveal the underground recipe that lawn care companies have been trying to keep secret for decades. Right now, you're probably spending hundreds of dollars on store-bought fertilizers that barely work. Meanwhile, there's a homemade mixture so powerful that it can transform your dead, patchy lawn into a thick, green carpet in just 2 weeks. But here's what's really shocking. This fertilizer is so effective that some lawn care companies have actually lobbied to get it removed in certain areas. They know that if homeowners discover this recipe, their entire industry collapses overnight. I stumbled onto this unspoken formula after my neighbor's lawn went from the neighborhood eyesore to the envy of every homeowner on our street. When I finally got him to confess his secret, I couldn't believe what he told me. This isn't just fertilizer. This is grass steroids. The growth is so explosive that you'll need to mow twice a week just to keep up. Your neighbors will think you replaced your entire lawn with professional sod. But here's the catch. This recipe only works if you mix it exactly right. Get the proportions wrong, and you could actually kill your grass instead of supercharging it. The homeowners secretly using this forbidden fertilizer have lawns so perfect that landscaping companies stop to ask what they're doing. So here's the question that could transform your yard. What if the secret to a perfect lawn has been hiding in your kitchen cabinet? Mike's front yard was a running joke. For years, his grass looked like a worn welcome mat, bare patches, brittle straw, not a hint of green. Then, almost overnight, that changed. Neighbors who walked their dogs past his house every morning started to slow down, squinting at the impossible. In just 7 days, Mike's yard exploded into a thick, emerald carpet. The transformation looked fake, like someone rolled out sod in the middle of the night. But there were no delivery trucks, no landscaping crews, no warning. What happened next didn't stay on the block. Mike posted a 30-second time-lapse to TikTok. The clip started with that familiar stretch of brown, lifeless turf. Then, frame by frame, the grass surged. By the end of the week, the lawn glowed electric green. The video raced past 1 million views in days. Comments piled up. What's in that stuff? Is this real? My lawn needs this now. People begged for the recipe. Others accused Mike of using camera tricks or green paint, but the results spoke louder than any debate. On YouTube, the story hit a new gear. A full-length walkthrough dropped, showing Mike mixing 4 ordinary ingredients from his kitchen and spraying them across his yard. The upload shot past 1 million views in less than 3 days. Hundreds of thousands watched and rewatched the moment his patchy yellow lawn turned into something out of a golf course commercial. Even local news stations picked up the story. Fox 4 KC ran a segment. 9 News in Colorado called it an oldie but goodie for your grass. USA Today's Video Hub featured Mike's lawn as the centerpiece of a national DIY trend. The numbers kept climbing. Across TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, the cumulative view count topped 2.5 million in under a month. Strangers from other states messaged Mike for tips. Some tried the tonic themselves and posted their own before and after shots. Others warned about ruining their lawns if they got the mix wrong. But the hype was unstoppable. For the first time, there was hard visual evidence, a viral, unedited time-lapse of a homemade fertilizer working faster and better than anything from a store shelf. The stakes were clear. A secret recipe that could turn any dead, patchy lawn into the envy of the neighborhood, and a growing online army desperate to get their hands on it. But nobody knew where the recipe really came from, or how it ended up in Mike's hands. That mystery was only getting started. Long before viral videos and million-view TikToks, the promise of a perfect lawn was already captivating American homeowners. In the summer of 1939, a slim USDA extension bulletin landed in mailboxes across the Midwest. Its pages outlined a formula so simple, so cheap, it almost felt like a dare. Combine household ammonia, Epsom salts, iron sulfate, and water. The cost? Just $6 per acre, a figure that stuck, stamped right on the label as the $6 lawn tonic. The bulletin's author, Harold Whitaker, wasn't a salesman. He was a state extension agronomist, the kind of man who spent his days walking test plots and scribbling notes in the margins of field reports. Whitaker's letters, tucked away in the archives, reveal a mind obsessed with stretching every penny. In a June 1939 note to a small-town newspaper editor, he described the tonic as the working man's answer to overpriced bagged fertilizer. The editor ran with it, splashing the phrase across the Sunday paper. Within weeks, the recipe was being clipped, copied, and traded at hardware stores and feed shops from Iowa to Ohio. This wasn't just a Depression-era hack. It was a blueprint for survival. Commercial fertilizer cost more than a week's groceries, and city parks were scraping by on shoestring budgets. Municipal trial plots in Denver and Columbus put Whitaker's tonic to the test. In 1941, city workers sprayed the mix on battered public lawns. The results were measured, not just in greener grass, but in hard numbers. A 12% jump in turf thickness after 3 applications, compared to untreated patches that barely budged. Soil tests showed a spike in magnesium and iron, enough to catch the attention of city managers desperate to stretch their maintenance dollars. Yet the recipe's appeal wasn't just about thrift. There was a sense of quiet rebellion in mixing up a batch at home, sidestepping the glossy advertisements and the slick promises of the chemical giants. Extension agents, wary of over-application, warned homeowners to follow the proportions exactly. Too much ammonia, and the grass would burn to black. Too little, and the tonic did nothing at all. The stakes were real. One wrong step, and a front yard could go from hopeful green to dead brown overnight. By the time the war years rolled around, the recipe had already slipped from official bulletins into word-of-mouth legend. Veterans brought it home to the suburbs. Neighbors swapped tweaks and secret ratios at backyard barbecues. But the core idea remained unchanged. A homemade solution, born in the shadow of economic hardship, quietly outpacing the expensive bags stacked in hardware aisles. The $6 lawn tonic, stamped in the margins of a 1939 bulletin, had become a living blueprint, proof that sometimes the answer really was hiding in plain sight. Inside the boardrooms of America's biggest fertilizer companies, the numbers from Mike's viral lawn video landed like a slap. 2.5 million views in a month, on a recipe that costs less than a burger and skips the store shelf entirely. For decades, the industry had counted on glossy bags and springtime commercials to keep homeowners coming back. Now, a kitchen cabinet formula was threatening to upend that business overnight. Emails began circulating at Nutrien's California office in late 2008. A leaked slide deck, stamped confidential, market risk, outlined a new threat: homebrew tonic adoption. The company's own risk analysts predicted a potential 10% drop in sales among budget-conscious buyers if the trend caught on. The solution? Spend big and move fast. Lobbying records filed with the state show $42,000 earmarked for monitoring non-commercial lawn amendment practices, a number that stood out in a year when most line items shrank. The goal was clear: protect market share and keep the DIY tonic from becoming a mainstream alternative. The corporate playbook went beyond spreadsheets. A PowerPoint presentation, later obtained through a public records request, spelled out a strategy to partner with regulators and launch educational campaigns warning against unverified home mixtures. The message: only trust products with a label, a barcode, and a safety guarantee. Internally, emails from Nutrien's legal department discussed sending cease and desist letters to influencers who promoted the tonic, citing federal rules on unregistered fertilizer blends. But the real muscle showed up at the state capitol. In California, a bill labeled SB 331 quietly made its way through committee. The language was technical, amending the state's fertilizer law to require special labeling for any non-commercial lawn amendment. Buried in the fine print, household ammonia, the backbone of the homemade recipe, was reclassified as a restricted material when sold in bulk. The bill's sponsor, Linda Hart, a former industry consultant turned legislator, argued it was about public safety. But behind closed doors, lobby filings and committee minutes painted a different picture, a coordinated push by the fertilizer giants to lock down the market and make DIY solutions look risky, even illegal. For homeowners watching from the sidelines, the message was unmistakable. The cheaper, faster fix for their battered lawns had become the target of a multi-million-dollar industry. The battle lines were drawn, not just over grass, but over who gets to decide what grows in America's front yards. Grass doesn't explode into green just because someone pours a magic potion on it. Underneath every jaw-dropping transformation, there's a chemical tug-of-war happening in the soil. The homemade fertilizer's recipe reads like a dare: ammonia for nitrogen, dish soap as a surfactant, beer or soda for sugar, and water as the carrier. Each ingredient is supposed to play a role, but the science behind the mix is anything but simple. Start with ammonia. In small diluted doses, it gives grass a fast shot of nitrogen, the fuel for leafy growth. But too much, and the roots burn, the blades shrivel, and the whole lawn can turn black overnight. Dish soap, the next wild card, promises to break water's surface tension, helping the tonic soak into the soil instead of beating up and rolling off. The right amount acts as a wetting agent, but overshoot the dose and you risk stripping away the protective wax on grass blades, opening the door to disease and dehydration. The beer or soda isn't just for show. Both are loaded with simple sugars, maltose, sucrose, that can feed soil microbes. In theory, those microbes break down organic matter faster, releasing nutrients for the grass. But the evidence is patchy. Some university extension trials, like the one run by Colorado State University in 2022, measured only a modest 5 to 7% bump in chlorophyll, barely enough to catch the eye, let alone trigger a mowing frenzy. On sandy soils, the tonic sometimes outperformed untreated patches, but on heavy clay, the benefits vanished. Excess ammonia volatilized, lost to the air before the roots could use it. Dr. Peter Landscoot, a turf scientist at Penn State, has spent decades tracking how homemade nitrogen sources stack up to commercial blends. His advice is blunt: know your proportions or pay the price. Even a small miscalculation can flip the script from lush green to scorched earth. Landscoot's research, echoed by field trials in Kansas and Texas, shows that the homemade tonic can sometimes match the color boost of a store-bought fertilizer, but rarely exceeds it, and only when mixed with precision. Then there's the question of microbial life. Some studies hint that the sugars in beer and soda might briefly boost soil bacteria, but repeated applications risk upsetting the balance, especially if soap or ammonia concentrations creep too high. The tonic's power and its danger lies in the details. The line between a lawn that turns heads and a yard that turns to dust is razor thin. Next comes the real-world test. Can this formula deliver explosive growth under controlled conditions, or does it fizzle out when the cameras stop rolling? A single plastic sprayer, a kitchen measuring cup, and 4 ingredients lined up on the patio, this is where the myth meets the stopwatch. The recipe? 1 cup of household ammonia, poured into 20 gallons of water, a dash of dish soap, a can of beer, and a can of cola, all whisked together. The mix is cloudy, sharp on the nose, nothing like the blue crystals or slow-release pellets sold at garden centers. But the promise is clear: cover 2,500 square feet, and watch the grass wake up. The first pass is slow, methodical. Every strip of brown, every dusty patch gets an even soak. The sprayer's nozzle fans out a mist, not a flood. In the back of your mind, there's a warning. Get the dilution wrong and the whole yard could go black. But the numbers are precise. The ratios checked twice. 1 cup to 20 gallons. No more, no less. Day 3, the first change creeps in. The brittle straw at the edges begins to soften, the color shifting from gray to olive. By day 7, the transformation is impossible to ignore. Grass that looked dead now stands upright, blades thickening, the green deepening with every sunrise. By day 14, the lawn is dense enough to leave footprints, the kind that slowly spring back as you walk away. At day 28, the difference is staggering. What was once a patchwork of dirt and disappointment now looks like a putting green. No burn marks, no chemical scent, just a clean, lush sweep of color. The results are captured frame by frame, each day's progress stacked against the last. No camera tricks, no filters, just a straight shot, a homemade formula, mixed to the letter, turning a tired yard into a showcase. The only variable is the human hand on the sprayer and the discipline to follow the recipe, down to the last drop. Jenna's story spread almost as quickly as Mike's, but for all the wrong reasons. She watched the same viral video, scribbled the recipe on a sticky note, and set out to rescue her own tired lawn. The mix looked harmless, ordinary kitchen ingredients, a promise of lush green in days. But a single misstep changed everything. Instead of measuring carefully, Jenna poured in a full cup of ammonia straight from the bottle, skipping the dilution. By the end of the week, her grass didn't surge, it withered. In less than 5 days, 30% of her lawn turned brittle and black, the smell of ammonia still hanging in the air. Where Mike's yard had drawn neighbors over for photos, Jenna's became a cautionary tale. The fallout didn't stop at her property line. A summer thunderstorm rolled through, sending runoff trickling down the curb. Water samples collected by the local environmental agency showed ammonia levels spiking to 5 milligrams per liter, 10 times higher than what is considered safe for streams and ponds. The neighborhood group chat lit up with complaints about dead patches, burned flower beds, and a sharp chemical tang drifting through the block. The Boulder Heights Homeowners Association moved fast. On May 1st, Jenna opened her mailbox to find a $250 penalty for application of an unregistered chemical mixture. The letter cited HOA bylaws and demanded a material safety data sheet for the tonic, something no viral video ever mentioned. When Jenna couldn't produce the paperwork, the fine stuck. Her appeal to the municipal court went nowhere. The judge's ruling was blunt: user error, not product defect. Jenna's lawn didn't recover that summer. The dead zone spread, and by July, she was reseeding from scratch. Her story became a warning, whispered at block parties, a reminder that the same secret recipe that made Mike's lawn famous could just as easily destroy a yard overnight. The promise of explosive growth came with a risk that was all too real, and the cost of a shortcut was measured not just in dollars, but in months of lost green. Right now, Americans spend over $8 billion a year chasing the perfect lawn, often with little to show for it. The real power sits in a kitchen cabinet, just one wrong move from lush green or total ruin. As the line blurs between miracle and mistake, one truth remains. Sometimes, the greatest transformations and the biggest risks are hiding in plain sight. What would you dare to try?